I'm Jason, and today we're reviewing Betrayal at House on the Hill. So, welcome to our second episode where we're going to review Betrayal at House on the Hill. Also, as a reminder to those located in Halifax, Boardgasm, our local board game convention, will actually be occurring January 22nd from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. at Quantum Frontier, your local friendly gaming store. Hope to see you there. And you can visit us at www.boardgasm.org for more information.
So Betrayal at the House on the Hill is actually published by Avalon Press, which is actually a subsidiary of Wizards of the Coast, back in 2004. It was actually a much more recent reprint of this in October of 2010, however we're going a little old school here. Betrayal at the House on the Hill plays off of a lot of classic horror movie tropes, or just even the simple trope of a bunch of random people getting caught in a house together after their vehicle X has been broken down in front of House B, and they go and start exploring it. Probably to find a phone, or probably to find some sort of terrible horror lurking within. So I'm just going to quickly go through the components of Betrayal. So as you can see here, these are the character cards. There's 6 of them. Each one has a miniature associated with them. They're all color-coded. And each card is actually double-sided. So this fellow here on one side is Peter Akamoto, and on the other side he's Brandon Jaspers. But in both cases he's a boy who's also green. Next we have the starting tiles. These 3 larger sets of tiles here are always going to be in play at the beginning of the game. This tile here is the entrance hall, the foyer, and the grand staircase, which leads up to the upper landing. This is the upper landing, aforementioned. This is the basement landing. This here is the room tiles deck. You'll be using this deck to draw room tiles for the game. On the back of each room tile, there are 3 levels: upper, ground, and basement, as you can see on these cards. When exploring the floors, you draw room tiles from the room deck until you find a floor of the appropriate level that you were on. So if you're exploring the ground level, you have to continue exploring through until one of these tiles has the ground level denotation, as such. These 3 are the Omen, Item, and Event decks. When you are exploring the rooms, if you find an icon in one of the rooms that matches up with one of the icons on the back of these decks, you have to draw 1 card from this deck. These are the dice that are used in Betrayal. As you can see, each die has 2 blanks, 2 1s, and 2 2s. 2 books here are the Traitor's Tome and the Secrets of Survival. These are important for when, at the end of the game, the final haunt is revealed, and that continues the end game. Inside are secrets that you are not allowed to see, because if you did, you'd be ruining some of the game later on down the road. Simply put, there are 50 different haunts that could be revealed throughout the game, and these books are how you go about surviving or defeating your friends in those haunts. And this, finally, is the ridiculous amount of tokens that you will have access to in Betrayal. The reason why they have so many is because there are 50 different haunts and they want to make sure you have pieces for every single scenario. But you won't be using all of these every time. However, I will note that as much as we've played this game, we still have not used up all the pieces and have not punched them all out yet. Okay, to set up this game, you need to find these three tiles here. Again, this is the upper landing and basement landing, and also the entranceway, the foyer, and the grand staircase. You want to space these a reasonable distance apart from each other, because otherwise you may run into complications later in the game, where you're going to have to move all the tiles. You then have the room deck. You're going to want to give that a good shuffle. You then have the Omen, Events, and Item decks. You're also going to want to give these a good shuffle as well. Next, you can distribute the character cards. You can do this randomly, but we usually just kind of choose who we want. Often it's based on the color of the actual character, since they're all color coordinated. I'm going to choose Professor Longfellow. And Jason, who do you feel like playing?
Oxbellows, I think.
Oxbellows? Sounds good.
Yes.
Now this game is actually a minimum of 3 players, so we're going to set up 3 spots. Let's say Missy DeBourne. After your characters have been chosen, you also make sure to give out the miniatures associated with each character. So I am white. Player 3 is yellow. And Jason, you're red. Now, as a note, as mentioned before, there are actually 2 sides to each character sheet, so you do actually have to figure out which side you're going to be playing. I think I'm going to play Professor Longfellow. Before you start play, you're going to want to make sure your skill sliders are all set to the green value. This is known as your starting value. It's going to actually be different based on the character that you're playing. But make sure you know which character you're playing and set all the sliders to the green value. Alright, after your skill sliders are all set up, collect the characters, bring them to the main entrance hall, and now you have to determine who goes first. You can do this randomly if you like, but the way the game suggested is that you actually choose it based on the birthday of the character that you're playing. Whoever's birthday is the closest to this current date is the person that's going to be going first. So in this case, Professor Longfellow's birthday is July 27th. Missy DeBourne's is February 14th. I think she might be a shoo-in here. And what is Oxbellows, Jay?
October 18th.
October 18th. That's long past, so I guess it's Missy DeBourne is going to be playing first. And then, you are ready to start the game. So before we start play, I should note that each character card has 4 attributes, divided into 2 groups. These on this side, speed and might, are physical, and these 2 on this side, sanity and knowledge, are mental. The sliders note the current values. It's possible that these are going to be going up and down. As a note, on each character card there is a skull. This denotes when the character has died. When you take damage, you usually take damage in the form of mental or physical. Sometimes it could be specifically to speed, might, sanity, or knowledge. But if you take physical or mental, you can choose which stat decreases. If at any point you are forced to be reduced down to your skull value, then you are dead. If an attribute check needs to be made, you have to roll dice equal to the attribute in question and then add up the result. So if Professor Longfellow has to do a knowledge check, he has a knowledge of 5. That means I collect 5 dice, roll them up, and add up the result. So in this case, I have 4. If you're making an opposed check, say you're opposing an attack roll, Professor Longfellow would have to attack with his might. This means he would only be using 3 dice. He would make his roll. In this case, he got 3. If his opponent was stronger and was rolling 5 dice, someone else would roll this. The opponent received a total of 6, which means that he beat Professor Longfellow by 3. That means that Professor Longfellow is taking 3 physical damage. That should be quite painful. Okay, starting the game. Each turn is comprised of 2 phases, Explore and Resolve. Each character can move a total number of rooms equal to their speed, and that's the current value of their speed. Anytime a character enters an unexplored room, that would be a door with no connected rooms, the character draws room tiles until they get one of the appropriate level. So, Missy DeBourne is the first player here in this instance, so let's say that she continues moving here. With our room tiles, you can see we have basement. And the next tile here has a ground icon. We'd flip this up, place it in an appropriate space, and then she would have to resolve the icon in her room. In this case, it's an omen card. When an icon shows up in a room, you have to resolve that card, and it's the end of your turn. If that icon is a card that brings you to another room that also has an icon, you then resolve that new icon, and that is the end of your turn. You continue going through this way if you receive multiple icons. So because Missy DuBoard has drawn an omen, she has to resolve that card. We're not going to go into the specific card itself, but now she has to roll a haunt check. A haunt check is composed of 6 dice, which are rolled, and then compared to the number of current omens. The result of the haunt check, which is always 6 dice, needs to be less than the current number of omens in play. Right now the only omen in play is Holy Symbol, which means we only have 1. So the only way we could start the haunt right now would be a result of 0, which is possible, but unlikely. And then quite simply after that is the next player's turn. The next thing I'd like to go over is the haunt. Betrayal has 50 different haunt scenarios. There's no way we could go over each one of these in detail, and trust me, if you really want the game to stay interesting, you really don't want us to. But we are going to do one of them, which we are going to explain during this video. When the haunt is revealed, first you have to determine the scenario with your trusty Secrets of Survival guide or your Trader's Tome, cross-referencing the omen that was drawn with the room that omen was found in. So say an example in our previous gameplay example here. If the omen of Holy Symbol was drawn in the junk room, we would then go to our book. Let's see what we have here. So in this case, referencing our chart, the junk room, going across here with the Holy Symbol, would bring us to haunt number 9. Haunt number 9 declares that there is no traitor at first, and haunt number 9 would bring us to the Dance of Death. At this point, the survivors, whoever it may be, would read this guide here. The traitors would then take the Trader Tome and then read that in their own point. Because in this particular haunt it says there are no traitors, we would all take the survival guide, read that, and then when there's a traitor that, or when there's a person that eventually becomes a traitor, they're then given the tomb of the traitor. So the Secrets of Survival and the Trader's Tome are basically the components that make the end game different each time. It's difficult to foresee which omen and which room will actually tip the haunt, which makes for some very interesting suspense. Haunts often introduce new mechanics to the game, and again, we can't explain them all. Survivors will often have information the traitor does not know in order to survive, and the traitor will often have information the survivors will not know in order to defeat them. This secret knowledge does not need to be revealed to the opposite side, but both sides have to indicate why they are making a particular roll, and all dice rolls are open in front of the players. Thus, if a trait roll is made with 6 dice, then obviously the associated trait is 6. When it comes time for the traitor to take their turn, they take their turn as normal, and then they take turns with each monster they have acquired, if any, in addition to any alternate rules the Trader Tome has given them. Instead of moving their speed, monsters have to roll their speed in order to determine how far they can move. The monster can always move at least 1 square, even on a result of 0. When a monster is attacked, it is either killed or stunned, depending on the specific rules for the monster, as indicated in the Trader's Tome. Combat in Betrayal is always made and defended with might, unless a card says otherwise, or rules may say otherwise. Weapons can only be used when attacking. They do not count towards defense. Also, only 1 weapon can be used in an attack. When it is not obviously one player against another, in the example of Survivor, a Monster, or a Traitor, in the case of, say, an event card, the person to the left would make the roll against you instead of you rolling twice.